in civil engineering, MSc in infrastructure planning. He has over 45 years work experience, including rural development organizations as water sector and infrastructure development head. He has also worked as natural resource and settlement department head at the Ministry of Planning. He also worked as vice minister of the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment in Ethiopia. He has also work experience in IUCN, Technical Advisory and Environmental Protection Authority, and has been work at the managing director level of Green Vision PLC at a water and environmental consulting firm. He worked also project manager of the regional environmental projects of the Nile Basin Initiative stations in the Khartoum, Sudan for 6 years. This will cover all of the 10 Nile Basin countries. Since 2011 to date, he involved in the Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam negotiations. And also he is the chairperson of the he was the chairperson of the tripartite national committee of Egypt, Sudan, and Ethiopia. He is also the chairperson of technical team of the Ethiopian negotiation committee for Grand Ethiopia Renaissance Dam. Engineer Gideon is our today moderator of this session, the BIP2 sessions. So Engineer Gideon, the floor is yours. One announcement, the reporters, you can focus, try to summarize, you can give the guidance, but you can focus to summarize within short bulletins today's webinar. So Engineer Gideon, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adanach, for the kind introduction. It's an honor to be part of this important webinar. As Dr. Adanach said, our webinar title today is Basin Planning and Investment Promotion, which is closely related to the main theme of the NBDF 7, which is deepening Nile cooperation, accelerating the achievement of SDGs in changing climate. Today, we have about 7 or 8 papers to be presented by high-level professionals. With me, 2 rapporteurs, Dr. Collins and Engineer Rahel, will take note of your presentations, key messages, so that at the end of the webinar, we can have a consolidated key messages. With this few introduction, I will not go into the details of the CVs of presenters for saving time. I'll just introduce them and their affiliations as per the guideline provided to me. So to set the scene of today's webinar, I would like to call upon Engineer Tafarra Beyena, who is a TAC member, a senior advisor at the Ministry of Water and Energy of Ethiopia, and a former executive director of the Nile Basin Initiative. Engineer Tafarra, please, for your keynote address.
Thank you very much, Engineer Gideon. Yes, this morning I will focus on 4 items in my speech. First, on the Nile Basin development challenges, and then responding to development challenges, then the Nile River Basin Plan as one of the responses to these development challenges, and at last on the some lessons on financing. So I will follow these items. On the Nile Basin development challenges, the Nile Basin, especially the upstream water source part, has significant infrastructure deficit. This part of the basin is the most food insecure, the most exposed to crop failure risks due to drought, and by all measures, the most water insecure. This does not tally well with the fact that it is at the same time the water source of the Nile Basin. The main reason for this is the inadequate level of water infrastructure development. Agriculture is largely dependent on rainfall, which has become increasingly unreliable, leading to frequent crop failures and in some cases to famine. In the last decade alone, this part of the basin has faced several drought events with catastrophic impacts that affected millions of people. Electricity access is the least in the upstream countries. According to the 2021 State of the Nile River Basin report, on a number of indicators, the basin situation is very dire. Per capita water storage, which is a measure of climate shock absorption capacity, is still low. What's worrying is that the trend between 2010 and 2015 is a declining one. There is still high prevalence of waterborne diseases in all countries except one. There is still a lot to be done to increase water productivity in agriculture in most countries, without which feeding the rapidly growing population through lateral expansion of agriculture would be untenable. As we remember, back in 2017, the heads of state and governments of the basin countries in their first meeting noted with concern the key challenges facing the riparian states, namely A, the rapid growth in population in the Nile region, B, the lack of electricity, especially in the upstream areas where the two branches of the Nile originate, C, the lack of industrialization in the upstream countries of the Nile, and D, the continued reliance on traditional agriculture for subsistence in upstream countries, and E, the destruction of the environment upon which the Nile depends. The situation is by no means static. As population and economies of the countries grow, the demand for water, food, and energy increase. This leads to ever widening of the gap between demand for food, water, and energy and the supply for them. When one adds effects of climate change to this, the situation becomes even more dire. Therefore, time is of essence here. Without targeted and proactive measures to address the huge unmet demand, which is increasing by the day, as seen countless times, the very stability of the region will be at risk. Ladies and gentlemen, water is at the center of the economic development. Nile riparian states are not exceptions. Therefore, harnessing the water resource potential of the countries to address the needs of their citizens will remain one of the high priorities of these countries. On the second point, responding to the development challenges, over the past several decades, efforts of member states to address the above-mentioned challenges have followed a two-pronged approach. First and foremost, as sovereign states, the riparians have invested substantial volume of finance on various water resource development and management projects. Fruits of this can be seen, though modest, in many hydropower, irrigation, urban rural water supply, power interconnection, and other development projects. Countries invested from their own and external sources to address the huge infrastructure gap needed to meet the water, food, and energy demands of their growing population and economies. We should be clear that despite the efforts of the countries, there still remain huge gaps to be addressed. In parallel, as we all know, the riparian states came together in 1999 to establish their investment programs, the NBI Subsidiary Action Program for Eastern Nile and the Nile Equatorial Lakes region. Through these programs, the member states generated options for infrastructure development, developed tools and knowledge system for decision making, and worked on capacity development of their professionals. To mention some, the multi-sector investment options of NELSAP, the Eastern Nile Joint Multipurpose Program, the comprehensive basin-wide power study for generating options, and lately the Nile Equatorial Lakes Investment Program, NELIP, are examples. In terms of generation of infrastructure options, I can say that the NBI has done impressively well. However, as they say, the proof or the test of the pudding is in the eating. Very little has been realized on the ground in terms of water infrastructure needed to address the huge and widening unmet demand for food, energy, and water. I have been taking part in the NBI activities from early 2000s. I can say that the main selling point of the Nile cooperation back then was the possibility to unlock huge investments through the cooperation. In hindsight, ladies and gentlemen, NBI is far off from that goal. Third point is the Nile Basin Plan as one of the responses. Reflecting on that, on the Nile Plan, that is the subject of this webinar. I believe a good plan is the first step toward the sound water resource management. Excuse me. However, as seen countless times, there are excellent plans that remain on the shelf. From the onset, we need to recognize that the Basin Water Resource Plan should be there to facilitate water resource development and management. Therefore, I believe the Nile Basin Water Resource Plans need to be designed to transform infrastructure development in the basin. This was emphasized by the first heads of state and governments of the Nile countries in their directives 1-2, developing the water resource and related potential of the basin to attain water, food and energy security and improve living standards of the people, and 2, protection of the fragile Nile Basin environment. In my view, the primary objectives of the Basin Water Resource Plan are these two, nothing less. In this regard, it must be emphasized that first and foremost, national governments are primarily responsible for meeting the development needs of their respective countries. The Basin Plan should support countries to achieve what they cannot individually achieve, rather than be a constraint. Given the transboundary nature of the Nile, of course, national water resource management and development plans need to factor in benefits to riparian upstream or downstream, as the case may be. Therefore, the Basin Plan can complement the national plans, for instance, through measures for optimized of water use, example, storage in highlands, minimization of losses, or maximization of mutual benefits. On the fourth and last item that I want to reflect on, some lessons on finance mobilization. Over the last more than 2 decades, a key challenge NBI faced in realizing infrastructure investments in the basin is lack of adequate financing. This was especially so after the signing of the CFA by 6 member states. While I remain optimistic about external financing for infrastructure investments, I highly encourage NBI to look for alternative financing sources approaches for water and energy infrastructures. I believe it's high time that we, the riparians, mobilize domestic finances and reduce over reliance on external funding. My country, Ethiopia, has made strides in self-financing its water and energy infrastructure projects. A case in point is the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD. Despite the huge challenges the country faced, it mobilized its people and self-financed this mega dam project, which is nearing completion. The main secret behind the success of GERD and other large water and energy infrastructure projects developed in the last 20 years in the country is their financing mechanism. They were all self-financed. There is no reason why NBI countries, especially the upstream countries with huge water infrastructure deficit, cannot join their hands and self-finance their projects cooperatively. I believe what is needed is more courage and greater commitment. In conclusion, the huge unmet food, energy, and water demands of the upstream riparian states cannot be met through business as usual, protracted process of transboundary investment project cycle. The Nile Basin region needs transformative water and energy infrastructure investments urgently, as the heads of state and government said back in 2017. We need to explore new financing avenues, such as self-financing of infrastructure investments. In that regard, I highly encourage NBI to work with its member states closely to reinvigorate its infrastructure investment programs, going beyond business as usual. I thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Tafarra, for this all-embracing opening remark. You have indeed set the scene now for the next presentations. I would like to request all presenters to stay within the limits of the time of presentation, which is 10 minutes for all presentation. Please keep the time so that we can have adequate time for discussion. I would like now to call Mr. Tom Wako from the Nile Basin Initiative. He is a veteran of the Nile Basin Initiative, a colleague and a well-experienced person in basin planning and hydrology. Mr. Tom Wako, you have the floor. Distinguished participants, the screen share now has started. The previous was an opening remark with no PowerPoint presentation. I hope all participants, is it visible? Please proceed.
Thank you, Ato. Thank you, Ato Gideon, and thank you for the opportunity. Good morning to all. Indeed, it's an honor to me also to share with you the Basin Management Plan of NBI. The Nile Basin Initiative has been doing a lot of work in terms of knowledge management, analysis, and the monitoring of the basin. It has been done over the years, and the different parts have formed kind of a story that can coherently be put together to make a plan that can guide or inform the future going forward in terms of development. So with that in mind, the Nile Basin Initiative embarked on a process of preparing a basin management plan. It went through a process of reviews with the key stakeholders, mainly the countries, and we were able to get an approved basin management plan just last year. And it is this plan that is forming the basis of the presentation. The plan is also associated with the set of basin reporting, which has been prepared for NBI for the last 5 or 10 years, and it normally follows a model of driver, pressure, state, impact, and response. And with that, we have been able to do 2 state of basin reports. The first one was, I think, 2015. The last one was 2020. So we are now planning to do every 5 years a state of basin that has a set of indicators that we follow. So based on that analysis, we are able to prepare this basin management plan. And this plan is also informed by other initiatives in the basin, the RECs and other organizations that also participate in the development or management of the water resources of the Nile. So it has been prepared with participation of different stakeholders.
The screen share?
Oh, sorry, we had an internet problem. I think it went off. Let me share again. So we got a slight power surge and the screen share went off. So really the purpose of this, considering that this approval was secured in 2022, we are trying to raise awareness about this river basin management plan. We're also trying to promote it so that it can inform the policy and guide the communication regarding the plan itself. So as a matter of context or background, part of it has been made easy for me by Ato Tefera in his keynote speech. Just as an introduction and context, we note that the Nile is the longest river in the world. We note that it has a strategic location on the continent, in the sense that it is 10% of the landmass, but it's a home to about a quarter of the population on the continent, which makes it a very strategic or important part of the continent for the management and survival of populations. It has diverse ecosystems which require to be sustained and managed in a way that can keep the balance. Then there are, of course, challenges that are also very complex and wide-ranging that the basin has got to grapple with. And therefore, the platform provided by the NBI supports the responses in those different challenges that are characteristic in the basin. We have outlined 6 key challenges in the State of Basin Report 2020, which I said is our major anchor or basis for the basin planning. There is increasing pressure on water resources. Of course, with the economic growth that is happening, with the population that is growing, and of course, with the associated increasing population, environmental degradation, and climate change, the pressure on the water resources is immense and requires interventions. There is implications of agricultural development to water and food security. Of course, also there is lack of access to reliable and modern energy that is required to meet the needs of the population. So despite this, the increasing, progress in terms of developing power and interconnectivity, the supply is still inadequate. And when you look at the basin, you will see that the statistics are not comparable to the world, to other world interconnections. We are still low in terms of accessibility to clean energy. There is also the important role of hydropower combined with other renewable resources, which can be able to respond to the energy gaps. There is need also to expand the infrastructure in terms of the power grids that can be able to interconnect the national grids in the region so that we can increase the access to power to the population. These are the 3 challenges. Then the other 3 challenges, increasing impacts on ecosystems and biodiversity. The basin has got a number of biodiversities that require to be sustained. There is inadequate resilience to climate change. Our adaptation capacity is very low. And also there is lack of coordinated and integrated governance with regional perspective. There are a number of regional initiatives that are working within the basin, but the coordination level of work together to respond to similar challenges and mainly from similar sources of funding has not been also good. So these are the 6 challenges that we looked into in this basin management plan. And really, the agenda of the basin management plan is aligned to the shared vision of NBI, which we all know as to achieve sustainable socio-economic development through equitable utilization of and benefit from the common Nile basin water resources. And really the focus of the plan is to ensure availability of sustainable water resources across the basin development and provision of the benefits of these common water resources. So we are looking at a cooperative approach to address the Nile agenda through the regional actors, which include the river basin management organizations, includes the regional economic communities, the civil society, the national governments, member states, all these working together to address an agenda of cooperation aimed at sustainable management and development of the basin. So really the objective of the plan is to guide the planning and implementation of the water resource management and development interventions at the national, sub-regional, and regional levels. There are specific objectives that we looked into. We look at them in details. There are a number of strategic actions and associated targets that have been carefully crafted to respond to the 6 challenges. It is also has the objective to serve as an overarching guiding framework for orienting water resources management and development at these different levels, and also to set an action agenda that is informing preparation of the investment programs, including the Basin investment program that we are into now, to promote the water, food, energy, and environment security in the basin in a cooperative and sustainable manner. And also we are looking at monitoring the progress that these investment programs contribute in terms of moving towards the goals of the Nile River Basin Management Plan. So there is a lot of value addition in terms of organized management and development, which is born through the Basin Management Plan. We look at consolidating the achievements of that cooperation. As I mentioned in the beginning, we've done a lot over the years, and all of these different parts of the interventions need to be put together in a coherent manner and coordinated so that they can respond to the higher objectives of the Nile cooperation. We need also the value of a coordinated and well-directed approach to maximize the effectiveness of the effort, minimize duplication, and of course, maximize complementarity, so that what we do can be able to contribute to the bigger achievements of the plan. Then, of course, support to investment planning. Investment which is guided by the plan is, of course, more sustainable, and of course, aligning to the national development strategies and plans, so that what is done in a way complements or catalyzes the development at national level. So this is like the contribution on how the agenda contributes to the Nile agenda. We can see from here we have got the 6 goals that NBI aims at addressing: water security, energy security, food security, environmental sustainability, climate resilience, and governance. This contributes to the overall shared vision of NBI, and which contributes to the overall public goods of the global public goods, which include the no poverty, no hunger, well-being, water and sanitation, and all this can also be seen in the SDGs that are being implemented under the UN umbrella. So this is the conceptual framework that informs our basin management plan. We have the shared vision as our guiding framework. Then we have got high goals that we try to achieve. Then looked at the action areas. And from these action areas, we got 26 of them. These 26 action areas informed the strategic actions that we have pointed to be addressed. And these we have got 63 action areas that we are aiming to implement. These are informed by targets. We have got 14 targets that have also been addressed that I will show in the subsequent slides. I think we need to mute someone. Then we've got the progress of these different strategic actions being implemented, and these drive towards higher targets of the SDGs. And continuously, we keep doing the planning processes, then the implementation, and this conceptual framework are evolving, continues implementing the basin management plan.
Please conclude.
Okay. This is a strategic framework which is showing basically the 6 goals, which are also in the 10-year strategy of NBI. Here we are showing the 14, the targets that have been framed from the basin management plan. There are 14 of them. And these are addressed by 63 strategic actions, which have also been aligned to the different goals of the NBI 10-year strategy. And here we are showing the responsibilities on who is doing what. There is setting the target, then the contributions, and also, of course, the progress review that is also considered in the framework that I showed earlier. These are the responsible players in terms of implementation. I tried to make it quick. Sorry in case it was not very clear. The 10 minutes, I think, were too short to address the basin management plan. Chair, I submit.
Thank you, Tom. I understand, and all of the participants understand that 10 minutes is not enough to present the whole plan in a detailed manner, but you have given us the gist of the plan, which is adequate for this webinar. I will now go for the next presentation. The next presentation is Integrated Water Resource Management Strategy, Development for the Lake Victoria Basin, which will be done by Engineer Arsene Mokoboa, a program coordinator, a regional program coordinator for the Lake Victoria Basin Commission. Mr. Arne. Yes, please proceed.
Yes, good morning. Yeah, I'm going to run you through, of course, the Lake Victoria Basin Integrated Water Resources Management strategy that was recently developed to cover a period from 2023 up to 2050. So my brief presentation, of course, will cover a bit of introduction of the basin for the interest of the people who are not that conversant with the basin. Then I will highlight briefly, of course, the development process, then what came out as the strategic goals and areas, and then a few lessons learned in the whole process, and then I will conclude. Of course, the Lake Victoria Basin is a sub-basin, one of the sub-basins of the Nile River Basin. It has, of course, roughly 250 kilometers squared, which actually represent about 80% of the Nile River Basin. It's transboundary in nature, shared between three countries of Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda, and two countries, Rwanda and Burundi, lie in the upper catchment of the lake. Since, of course, it's located in the East African community, so it is considered as the most important and critical shared natural resources by the partner states of the East African community. Reason why they decided, of course, to create a dedicated institution, the Lake Victoria Basin Commission, to oversee and sustain the development of the basin. It's, of course, currently it has a total population of about 45 million, which of course is a considerable population compared to other sub-basins. Now, like it has, of course, been presented, I may not maybe go through all the issues, because even in the keynote speech, we've had generally, because Lake Victoria Basin is also not different from other part of the basin. But importantly, what I would maybe stress on is the water quality issue, which of course affects livelihoods, the 45 million that depends on the lake. And those are, of course, due to maybe increasing urban settlements in the basin, but also we have major cities around the lake that are, of course, under development. Those issues, of course, are coupled also with the stress on the basin itself. We do have issues to do with land degradation, deforestation, among others, wetland encroachment, among other things, plus, of course, the climate change impact. So all those challenges cannot, of course, be addressed without a proper coordinated manner. The East African community normally has what we call the development strategy that covers all sectors, not only water resources, but also other sectors. Then from that development strategy, each, let's say, institution of East African community normally develops a strategic plan. But if you want to really address these specific issues in the basin, then you need a special tool. That's why we needed maybe a special strategy. First of all, to support the harmonization of the lake basin planning and management between countries, because we do share issues. So how harmoniously can we plan together and see whether we can come up with coping mechanisms of these issues? Second, of course, recognizing the transboundary nature of the basin, this strategy was now to try and facilitate countries to identify and prioritize transboundary investments that, of course, that you can, whether implemented locally, but with, of course, benefits across the region. Third, of course, was to create that coordination in terms of now resource mobilizations. Once we will have, of course, identified issues, solutions, prioritized, then it creates a way of now mobilizing all together resources. And of course, lastly, it was to strengthen the regional role of the commission, because as the commission was mandated to coordinate actors and non-actors in sustaining the lake, without an instrument such as, of course, a strategy, it was a little bit difficult for us to fulfill our mandate. So with respect to the process, of course, as in any other strategy, of course, we did a situational analysis, basically reviewing, existing knowledge, reviewing policy and other strategic document, and also documents to do with the state of the basin. Unfortunately, of course, here when we talk of the state of the basin and the issues that are there, it's not specifically for Lake Victoria Basin, because we haven't reached this, and of course it will maybe be highlighted in some of the challenges. So, but being, of course, a sub-basin of the Nile Basin, some of the information, of course, were drawn from the mother status. Then, of course, we did have very strong stakeholder consultations. First of all, you have to consult at national level. Then, of course, at regional level, where you bring together the different partner states. You have also to interact with, we did interacted with different various range of experts in their capacities. Then, of course, also decision makers, be it at national level, but also we did consult also the regional or the basin organizations like the Nile Basin Initiative, the NELSAP, among others that we share the responsibilities. Then, after we analyze, of course, the current situation and consulted to beef up the information that have been corrected, then we embarked on the visioning, all together, defining goals, strategic areas, and then being able now to come up with the strategic actions. So these documents, of course, for the strategy to now be enforced or for it to be implemented, it had to be blessed. It had to be approved. If we need to, of course, it went through some regional workshops. Then in our governance, of course, we do have what we call regional project steering committees that are, of course, that brings together permanent secretaries in the ministries of water and environment, and then it is actually yet to be presented to the Council of Ministers at the end of this month. So once it is, of course, approved, then...
You have 1 minute.
Yes. Yeah, so the strategy, of course, I will not dwell into much into the content. It came up with 5 main goals, 9 strategic areas, and about 64 strategic actions. So among the lessons learned, of course, one is to do with the stakeholder engagement so that you enhance, of course, the acceptance of the plan that comes out. The other one, of course, because of the necessity of information, is to deal with gaps in scientific data in this basin where, of course, information is scarce. Then, of course, while identifying the development challenges and opportunities, there is always that tendency of people looking at their local issues, not in the context of a region. But of course, when you bring people together, then it comes as the process goes along. Finally, of course, for you to have any transboundary plan with relevancy, then it has to address either both local issues and local issues. So it has to be comprehensive enough so that then it is considered by partner states and then can support it. And yeah, finally, of course, in conclusion, what we noticed is that information in this basin planning, information is key, be it at the basin level, let's say the Nile, but also the sub-basins levels. Because even if we did it at Lake Victoria Basin, we know that there are also some big catchment or sub-basin areas. So you need information, of course, to measure the threats, the pressures. You need to do forecasting and also measure the impact to be able to have a clear picture. Another thing, of course, from what I've mentioned, this strategy goes up to, because of the issues, you can't address these issues in, let's say, 5 to 10 years. It goes up to 2050. So we need to be time mindful. We need to plan and act now because we don't have time. Finally, of course, we need the human capital and we need to partner in all what we do. Thank you very much. That's Max.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Engineer Mukuboa, for this presentation. I once again want to say that the time allotted for this presentation is not enough. I mean, 10 minutes to present such topics, very wide topics, is not enough. But anyway, let's try to manage what is given by the organizers. I'd like to call upon for the next presentation Professor Julian from the University of Manchester, United Kingdom. Welcome, sir, and you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Asfa. It's great to be at the Nile Basin Development Forum. Hopefully you can hear me well. I have a lot of slides, so I'll start moving quickly. The theme I'd like to talk about is new approaches and tools to help us identify high-value infrastructure solutions in the Nile region. Here are my main co-authors. Mohammed Bashir and Mikias Etichia have both been interns many years ago with NBI, and they have a long history of collaboration, and they are the main authors of the work I'm going to show today. Other collaborators include people like Mikael Abibi from Entro and other colleagues at universities. So the main challenge that we have is since many years have been thinking, how can we assess infrastructure options, development options, considering the river basin, the energy system, and the economy. And so that is how we plan to make these assessments, is considering these different dimensions. And when we make these assessments and evaluations of different options, we'd like to be able to simulate with a computer each of those systems individually, but also their connection. But we have to be able to simulate them credibly individually, look at their connections, consider uncertainty, so be able to consider many scenarios, consider many dimensions of performance, and we'd like to both simulate and optimize interventions. Optimizing is when you're searching for the best combinations, and simulating is when you're just testing different combinations. So let's have a quick look at some of the tools that we've been using over the last 5 years in our collaboration with Entro and with NBI. So remember these 3 dimensions: river basins, energy systems, and economies. The 3 tools that we use are all open source. They're all public and free to use. The river basins, we use a model called PyWR. For energy systems, we use a sister model to PyWR called PyENR. And for the economies, we use IFPRI's whole economy model. And these are all well known and available for free on GitLab. These are GitHub. These are public tools. So just a few quick words on the water resource simulation, PyWR. This is just a conventional simulator that allows to represent things like the inflows from hydrological models, the reservoirs, how they act, the operations, hydropower, water demands from irrigation. It's a very, allows you to represent the full complexity and realistic operations of systems. It can simulate very quickly, and it can allow you to optimize with a link to multi-objective optimization. The energy model is called PyENR, and it has a similar format where you consider a network, and it allows to simulate all the different energy generation technologies. And we connect these with a framework called PinSim, which is a way to connect different simulation models. And the economy model is well known. It's called IFRI's CGE model. And it's well known, so I won't talk about it here. It's been available for the last 20, 30 years. Because these models can be quite specialized, when we were working in the Future Dams project with ENTRO and NBI, we developed something called waterstrategy.org, which is a user interface which allows using the river basin model. The connections with the energy model and the economy model are not yet available in this interface. This interface is just for the river basin model, but it allows you to use these models in a way that's convenient. You don't have to be an expert in Python, and so these are cloud-based tools. You can see that you can just connect to the website, and it allows to collaborate because you can share the models that we use. You can share them with teams, and so we shared when we built these, we shared them with NBI and ENTRO, and several users can interact with the same model. Here's just a quick screenshot of what the river basin model looks like in the interface. And here's a screenshot of the water energy model. So here you can see the electrical grid in red and the rivers in gray. And so this just gives you an idea of what it looks like when you apply these tools. Okay, I'll move quickly. Okay, so now we've talked a little bit about the tools. So what's the design approach? What is the approach that we use to evaluate different investments? Well, the first is what we just talked about, is simulation. You have to be able to simulate to assess the performance from an engineering, an environmental, and an economic point of view of different investments, typically infrastructure and infrastructure operations. So the first step is simulating those on your computer. The next one is you connect that simulation to a search engine. And this is these are artificial intelligence methods that are quite new and that allow you to optimize based on your simulation model. So it's just an algorithm that repeatedly tries simulations until it can't find solutions that it can further improve on. And the last step is after you've done those multidimensional optimizations, you deliberate with stakeholders and you assess the trade-offs and synergies, and you make selections of different assets. And so graphically, this is what this looks like. If you identify those best solutions, if you have different performance metrics, X and Y, you can see that we would identify the best compromises between X and Y. And on the left, we have a scatter plot, and on the right, we have a parallel axis plot, which is the format that we use to assess these options. And the final step of the approach is deliberations. So we're working with stakeholders to review results. Let me quickly just give a very quick summary of 2 case studies we did. I know time is passing quickly. So the first case study is the GERD. How can we adaptively operate the dam, and especially for filling? This is a talk that Mohammed gave last Friday at the NBDF session, so I won't go in it in detail. So this was our first case study using these tools. The second case study, which was led by Mikias, and he'll be presenting it at the Nexus sessions, is as you know, the water and energy systems are connected. We have in red the East African Power Pool, and in blue, the Water Resource Network. And the question we posed in this study was, how can the interconnection, how can further trade agreements, electrical trade agreements between the countries potentially help resolve the GERD dispute. So these are the two case studies for the use of these tools. And I'll just show one result slide for both, just so you get a flavor of how we assess these different infrastructure investments. You can see here from the first case study, we have an example of what results can look like. So each line represents an optimized assessment of different adaptive operating rules for the GERD. The dark blue one in the middle is the Washington draft proposal. This is the proposal that was developed in 2020 with in Washington, D.C. And then the thin gray lines are all the alternative proposals that the modeling system has optimized. And here we highlight just a few which are particularly favorable to one country. Of course, we can't, so there's three here that are particularly favorable to either Egypt, Ethiopia, or Sudan, but the blue one is a compromise design. And this is what this paper, which I'll show you in a minute, for example, says that this compromise design is something that the countries could look into. That was case study one. Obviously, very quick overview here. In case study two, we increased interconnections between the countries, and we looked at 4 scenarios. And I don't have time to go into these results, but what we found is that the water deficits, in this case in Egypt, decreased the more you connected the system. So the more the East African power pool interconnects the different power supplies of the different countries, the less you have irrigation deficits in Egypt. I have just 1 minute left, and I don't have time to go into details. What I just wanted to do is increase your interest. Feel free to just take a picture if you'd like to read up more on these case studies. The first link here is the first case studies I review. The second case study, we haven't published it yet, but so I included the link to a very similar publication that we've done looking at the country of Ghana. So if you're interested in the water energy interconnections, we haven't published that yet. I can't give you the paper because it's not available yet, but the second one here is a similar article using a similar methodology based in Ghana. So anyways, feel free to take a picture of those if you'd like to read up further on the methods. The last slide is simply to say that if we want to assess investments in East Africa, being able to simulate the energy, the river, and the economy helps really evaluate those new options. We want to use infrastructure to increase synergies between the countries and between different economic sectors. And the artificial intelligence assisted design approach that we showed here today allows considering synergies and trade-offs between these benefits and intervening in an efficient and balanced way. And that concludes my talk. Here again are these links if you'd like to take a picture or screen capture. Thank you very much. It's been great collaborating with NBI over the years, and I hope to be able to collaborate with others in the region in the coming years. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Professor Julian. Very interesting presentation. Very much interested to also go and see the details of the first example on GERD, and would like to go and see it. Thank you very much for your brief presentation and keeping the time also. Anyway, during the discussion, we'll raise some issues of the baseline you took, and we'll come to that during the discussion. Thank you again, and now we go to the next presentation. The next presentation looks at financing investment in the water sector by Mr. Witane Milenge from Democratic Republic of Congo. You have the floor, sir. Mr. Milenge?
Hello?
Yes. Please proceed.
Okay. Okay. So I can present to the French. Huh?
Yes, Dr. Adanich, please, is there a translation now?
Yeah.
Please proceed then.
Someone will take notes and we'll get a summary of the discussion at the end of the presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr.
Notes.
Okay. You can proceed in French, Mr. Milling, please.
Thanks. Everybody, I say again, good morning. Bonjour à tout le monde. Est-ce que vous me
Yes,
suivez
good
très bien?
morning. Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed.
Merci beaucoup. Nous sommes très heureux d'être acceptés de présenter au 7e forum de l'initiative du NUL. Et notre présentation va porter sur les finances et les investissements sur la gestion de l'eau. Je ne sais pas si nous pouvons commencer avec la présentation, la première page de la présentation.
Yeah, the presenter is asking if someone could share his slides.
Can share the screen, yes. Allow the presenter to share the screen, please.
I think he wants the presentation to be shared from the command center. Maybe we could look for his presentation and share from here.
OK, merci beaucoup. Tantôt, comme je le disais, je suis Ladislas Witanene. Je suis le représentant du réseau des organisations des jeunes engagés dans les zones humides et protection de la nature en RDC. Notre représentation va porter sur les finances et les investissements dans le secteur des ressources en eau. Et notre présentation, nous avions prévu un ossature de la présentation et dont on va parler sur les contextes généraux. Il y a les objectifs de la présentation, mais aussi nous allons parler sur les défis dans le secteur des ressources en eau, les avancées significatives aussi dans le secteur, mais aussi quelques recommandations et ça sera la conclusion. Par rapport, par rapport au contexte général,
Please change the slides quickly, please.
OK, merci. Par rapport au contexte général, nous remarquerons ici ensemble que les différentes discussions des récents forums internationaux sur la COP27 sur le climat, mais aussi la COP 15 sur la biodiversité et la conférence des Nations Unies sur l'eau ont souligné le limite de l'architecture internationale actuelle sur les finances, mais aussi sur l'eau, en appelant la réduction des institutions de finances. Et si nous voyons, il y a la Banque mondiale, mais aussi les FMI, qui ont des intérêts, mais aussi les soutiens accompagnés, les services. Et si les discussions en cours sur la réforme de l'architecture financière mondiale sont présentées pour les finances de l'eau au niveau mondial. Mais la communauté de l'eau gagnerait ici engagée dans la question si la réorientation et la redéfinition des propriétés des finances publiques pourra être une source importante dans les financements, mais aussi dans l'investissement dans le secteur de l'eau, et notamment via la mobilisation des subventions récurrentes annuelles avec les gouvernements. Et après ça, nous allons parler sur les objectifs maintenant. Pourquoi cette présentation au 7e forum sur les initiatives du Nil. Et la première de nos objectifs, ça serait
Please
en
change the
fait
slides.
d'amener...
Next
Monsieur
slide.
Milengue,
Yes,
Monsieur Milengue,
yes.
j'aimerais juste faire une traduction
Oui.
pour le contexte général parce que nous avons beaucoup de personnes qui n'en parlent pas le français. Alors, permettez-moi, je vais faire juste une traduction sur le contexte général.
Merci beaucoup, sans problème.
I think we should go a little bit faster because we are already half the time.
Okay. I just wanted. Oh, so he speaks in French? Okay. Excusez-moi, continuez, Monsieur Milengue. Nous allons faire une sommaire après la présentation.
Merci beaucoup.
Parce que
Nous pouvons passer sur les objectifs. Merci beaucoup pour ça.
Change the slide. Quickly change the slide according to the presentation, please. We're running out of time. Can you change the slides, please?
It was a bit stuck now. He's recasting it and then we change. Technological challenge a bit.
Bon, on peut continuer par rapport aux objectifs. Et nous avions dit qu'à l'occasion du 7e forum du développement du bassin du Nil, notre présentation vise à mener les parties prenantes à bien jouer le rôle pour attirer les financements dans le secteur de l'eau, en renforçant en fait les plaidoyers, sur le financement et les investissements dans le secteur de l'eau, en vue d'assurer l'accès à l'eau potable, à l'assainissement, mais aussi à l'hygiène pour tous. Mais l'idée, c'est persuader ou bien convaincre les bailleurs de fonds et les investisseurs à renforcer l'expertise et les capacités des partenaires en vue de lutter contre la pollution dans le secteur de l'eau. Et suite à ça, il y a des défis qui ont été en fait identifiés dans le secteur. Parce qu'ici, avec les observations, mais aussi des recherches que nous avions menées, tantôt sur le plan mondial, sur le plan continental, sur le plan national et même local, nous avions poussé à identifier quelques défis. Entre autres, il y a un faible financement dans le secteur de l'eau. Et ici, nous voyons il y a l'inadéquation entre l'offre et la demande. Mais aussi, deuxième point, par rapport au défi, il y a un défi lié au changement climatique. Parce qu'au moins, il y a les déficits de pluviométrie, mais aussi, il y a des cours d'eau qui diminuent en fait la quantité de l'eau qu'ils ont. Et tout cela, c'est lié toujours. Mais aussi, il y a autre défi, c'est un défi lié aux politiques dans la gouvernance ou bien dans la gestion de l'eau. Et si nous voyons, il y a l'incapacité en fait d'évaluer ou de tarifier en fait l'eau sur le marché. Mais aussi, il y a un défi du conflit de gouvernance sur la gouvernance de l'eau. Il y a aussi un conflit, qu'on pouvait dire, des personnes ou de la qualité des outils qu'on utilise. Mais aussi, il y a un conflit, donc un défi par rapport à la qualité de l'eau qu'on nous offre sur les marchés. Mais aussi, il y a un autre défi qui est très majeur au niveau du continent africain, c'est la croissance démographique. Et qu'ici, tout le monde en a besoin de l'eau, mais
You have 1 minute, Mr. Rutane. 1 minute.
Yes, mais l'on devient en fait très minime. Mais quant à ça, il y a quand même quelques avancées dans le secteur. Et ici, il y a un programme d'action pour l'eau qui va recenser en fait les engagements volontaires, liées à la processus de l'eau, mais aussi après la réunion des Nations Unies sur l'eau, il y a un programme de renforcement des capacités, mais aussi des coopérations avec toutes les parties prenantes. Mais aussi, il y a par exemple la Banque mondiale qui a lancé en fait un texte avec le plateforme multi-acteurs pour soutenir les réformes liées à la gestion de l'eau et l'implication des gouvernements. Mais aussi, il y a quelques banques qui ont souscrit, qui non, ils vont donner l'argent pour appuyer en fait les développements, mais aussi les projets de l'eau, tantôt sur le plan régional, sur le plan national, local, mais aussi sur le plan international. Mais quant à ça, nous avions en fait identifié quelques recommandations au gouvernement en fait des pays africains de voir comment ils peuvent continuer à demander de l'argent aux bailleurs de fonds, parce que c'est un problème que nous avons aujourd'hui, parce qu'il n'y a pas de l'argent et ça devient difficile d'accorder ou bien de donner de l'eau à tout le monde, mais aussi aux parties prenantes de s'engager à modifier dans l'efficacité de la qualité d'approvisionnement en eau, notamment dans les communautés qui sont mal servies. Aujourd'hui, nous avons des communautés qui n'ont pas de l'eau propre, mais aussi que les gouvernements des pays africains et les acteurs de la société civile renforcent les mécanismes d'alerte précoce, mais aussi la façon de tirer en fait, parce qu'aujourd'hui, nous avons la sécheresse et les inondations qui fait aussi des dégâts dans le village. Et enfin, par rapport aux recommandations, aux bailleurs de fonds d'investir en fait dans le renforcement et la capacité des partenaires en vue d'investir dans le secteur de l'eau que nous voyons un problème. Et maintenant, par rapport à la conclusion, en fait, l'eau est liée à l'alimentation, mais aussi au climat et à la santé, et pourquoi pas sur la culture, ainsi qu'à l'économie du continent africain. Alors que le continent africain dispose plus de 5 milliards de mètres de cube-mètres, mais ici nous voyons il y a au moins 320 millions d'habitants qui n'accèdent pas à l'eau. Et ça, c'est un problème au niveau du continent africain. Or, sans l'eau, on ne peut pas se développer. Sans l'eau, on ne peut pas se développer. Et donc, face à ces constats accablés, le continent reste toujours dans les manifestations de la population, parce qu'au moins, il y a des gens qui n'acceptent pas l'eau propre dans leur village, et cela est cause des maladies, mais aussi des incapacités au niveau de la population, au niveau du continent africain. À ce mot, nous disons et nous vous remercions. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Wittane. Maybe I will give some 3 minutes for the translator to give us the gist of the presentation, focusing on the conclusion and recommendation. Thank you. Please, translator.
We are coming.
Thank you. So I'll quickly run through a summary of what Mr. Milenge shared. And basically his presentation started off with a general context around finance and investment in the Nile Basin. He indicated some of the challenges that are faced in the water sector, which included, you said you wanted mostly the recommendations and conclusion, right? Okay, but anyway, some of the challenges that he mentioned include political challenges around the management of water, especially in terms of capacity. Then there's also political conflicts related to the management of water. He also mentioned pollution. He also mentioned in terms of capacity building that people are not properly equipped with the tools that they need within the water sector. He also mentioned water quality itself as a challenge, and also and also the growing population on the continent, which is also placing a very large demand on water. He also briefly mentioned some of the advances that have been made, which I think I will skip because I think most people are really familiar with those, and I'll skip right to the recommendations. And one of them is that the African governments should encourage the development partners to look at their disbursement of loans, and perhaps even go as far as canceling the various debts that countries owe to these countries. Sorry, to the development partner countries or the IFCs, looking at this through a lens of development. Another recommendation that was made is that there should be efforts among all parties involved to basically enhance the efficacy and quality of the management of water, especially in communities that are marginalized, and also build the capacity at the institutional level, at the ministry and public service with respect to water and sewerage services. Another recommendation was that African governments, as well as civil society actors or organizations, should enhance the mechanisms that they have for early warning systems, especially with respect to dealing with drought as well as flood. And then the final recommendation was that development partners and other investors should look at enhancing the expertise as well as the capacity of the African partners involved in the water sector. And basically that will also help to, and also invest in this water sector itself. So the conclusion is that, that water, looking at the theme of the water, food, energy nexus, water is related to food, to energy, to health, and also culture as well as economy. And that looking at the current population of the African continent and the use of water based on the growing populations, that there is an urgent need for potable water. And so without this without this precious natural resource, it will be completely impossible to maintain good hygiene. And also that in face, looking at the challenges regarding social tensions, looking at the tensions, that the health of Africa and Africans in general is really at the crux of this issue around water. And that's the summary. I hope that was a bit clear.
Thank you, Madam, for the translation, and thank you, Mr. Wittane, for your presentation. Now we go to the next presentation. The next presentation, the title is Setting Water Charge Regulation as Source of Finance and Water Governance in Ethiopia. It's going to be presented by my colleague, Mr. Shifarrao Demise from the Ministry of Water and Energy. Mr. Shifarrao, you have the floor now.
Thank you so much, Engineer Gideon. Let me share my screen. Okay. Hello all.
Please proceed.
Okay. I am Shifarrao Demise from Ethiopia, already introduced by Engineer Gideon. Let me start from just saying something about the water resource of my country, Ethiopia. As just we have 12 basins in Ethiopia. Among those basins, Ethiopia contribute for the Nile, Abai or the Blue Nile, Baro Akobo, and Takaze contribute to the Nile. Just in Ethiopia, majority of the water resource are transboundary national, just crosses the national boundary. And as a country, we have around 122 billion cubic meter of water. And this resource, our water resource, just it has, when we look the water resource distribution, it has temporal and spatial variability. And just majorly, we get water during the rainy season, and there is water stress or water shortage during the dry season. And for this, for managing the water resource, Ethiopia just launched a proclamation for water resource management in 2000, and there is also a regulation in 2005. And the basic principles or in the legislation are Ethiopia water resource management policy is to recognize water resource as an economic and social good to provide greater benefits for development. The other one is management of water resource in Ethiopia should be permit-based. Just for managing the water resource, there should be a permit system. The other one is water charge shall be paid for the water resources that the user uses. These are the basic principles. And for the water use charge, as a country, we conduct a study with Addis Ababa University. And the general objectives of the charge or the study were just to develop sustainable, appropriate and implementable water use or abstraction and treated wastewater discharge charges. And for the implementation of pertinent water resource management policies, proclamation and regulation, yes, we have this proclamation and the regulation practically to implement those regulations. We need to have this water charge regulation. And this charge is basically prepared within the framework of integrated water resource management principles. So the basic principles, this charge is prepared based on polluters pay principle and users pay principle. These are the global principles for water resource management. And these water charges are collected from water users according to specific procedures and rates. And this is basically implemented on those having a permit to use the water resource will pay for the water use charge. Basically, from the study, regulation is already prepared. And for the type of uses, basically there are 6 types of uses are identified: irrigation, industry, fishery, hydroelectric power generation, municipal water supply, and recreation are the major water uses that are identified. The basis for calculating the charge for irrigation is the crop type, what type of crop is going to produce. The irrigation techniques, there are different types of techniques: surface irrigation, sprinkler, drip irrigation. Based on that, the charge will be set. The abstraction method and the volume, as the volume increases, just the charge per cubic meter of water will rise up. And the range of the cost for this type of, basically for subsistence or for kind of a small scale type, it costs us around 120 birr per hectare per year. And for cash crops, especially for horticulture, like for floriculture crops, it costs us around 9,824 birr per hectare per annum. For industry type, both volume and type of industry is considered. For the industries, there are two types of industries basically identified. There are industries use the water resource for processing, and there are also industries used for as a major raw material. The water is for instance, if we take the drink industries, the major their raw product material is water by itself. So the price is also set based on that. For fishery, it's based on the amount of fish harvested per annum by weight. That's all. The price is also set. For hydroelectric power, basically based on the capacity of the hydropower generation units, the charge is already set. For municipal water supply, this is for by considering bulk water resource abstracted. The price is also 0.0425 birr per meter cube. And for water-based recreation centers, this is for based on annual entrance fee, and the entrance from the entrance fee 0.01 amount is set. And this regulation is already prepared, already consulted with different stakeholders, consulted with Ministry of Finance, and consulted with the Ministry of Justice of Ethiopia. And after all those processes, it's already submitted to the Ministry of Council, to the Prime Minister Office for announcement. And just this regulation will bring to the water resource management. The first one is it covers costs for water resource management. The second advantage or profit is to send out clear signals that water is an economic good and improve water use efficiency, to improve capacity of water resource management institutions, increase investment in sustainability of the basins, used for studies and research that improves water resource management, used for improving collaboration and coordination, invest in activities that ensure sustainability of the basins. The other one is it uses for protection of hydraulic infrastructure and powerhouses, and it uses also protection of important water bodies such as lakes, wetlands, well fields, rivers, and the like. And overall, just it contributes for the sustainable development of the country as well as for the water resource. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Atach Ferra, for keeping in time and for your presentation. I hope the reporters are taking notes of key messages from these presentations. And now we come to the next presentation by Mr. John Owino, a Senior Program Officer at IUCN. And you'll talk about the case of CEO Malaba Malakasi, Transboundary Basin Benefit Sharing Dialogue to promote and guide investment decisions in the basin, shared between Kenya and Uganda for enhanced cooperation. I'm happy to see this presentation because we started this project while I was in NT in 2007 and 2008. So, Mr. John Owino, you have the floor, sir. Mr. John Owino, are you with us? The Secretariat, do you have any information about Mr. John?
Sorry. Engineer Gideon, Mr. Simon is not with us. Let us move to the next presenter.
No, I'm not with Mr. Simon now. I'm
Sorry,
calling on
Mr.
John.
Mr. John. Yeah, Mr. John.
John.
He's not with us.
Okay, then and we're missing some two presentations. So the next presenter would Fatima Salih Abdallah, Socioeconomic and SDG 6 indicators mapping for Eastern Nile Basin countries. Ms. Fatima, are you with us?
Yes, hello everyone.
Yes, please, you have the floor now.
Okay. So today we are going to talk about, presentation is about socioeconomic and SDG 6 indicators mapping for the Eastern Nile Basin countries. So the outline of our presentation, we will go through the objective of the project and the process of selecting indicators and mapping the domain in the Eastern Nile Basin countries, and the mechanism of the model development, and we'll see the final output of the model. So this project was conducted as a part of the NCCR professional program by the effort of 4 members representing the Eastern Nile Basin countries, Egypt, Sudan, South Sudan, and Ethiopia. The objective of the project is spatial data sourcing from global, regional, and country level to map socioeconomic and SDG indicators. So the first step was setting the framework and list of indicators that we are going to use in our model. So settling on the list of indicators depend on the availability of the data. For the 4 countries, we select 12 SDG 6 indicators and 4 socioeconomic indicators. So the total will be, we mapped 16 indicators for the Eastern Nile Basin countries. So regarding the SDG 6 indicator for the sanitation category, we have 3 indicators: access to improved sanitation service, access to non-pipe improved sanitation service, and access to sewer and septic sanitation service. By services, we map the practices related to collection, storage, transport, treatment, and the household wastewater. So for the improved water sources, which is accessibility to safely manage drinking water, we have 3 indicators, which access to improved water source, access to non-pipe improved water source, and access to pipe water source. For the ecosystem, which is changing the extent of water, we have 2 indicators: the ecosystem classification, ecosystem transition. For the ecosystem classification, the water surface is classified into 3 categories: no land, seasonal water, and permanent water. For the ecosystem transition, which is it takes like a period of time, 4 or 5 years, and it shows you the change that happened in the extent of water. So if it was permanent and became seasonal, it was seasonal and became no water. So it shows you the change that happened in the categories in the ecosystem classification. We also have the indicator water use efficiency, water stress, water cooperation, and integrated water resource management. This is regarding the SDG 6 indicator. For the socioeconomic indicator, so we have 4 indicators: the population density and the travel time to urban centers. For the travel time to urban centers, we have raster data. Each pixel in this raster represents the estimated travel time to the nearest urban area or to the services. We also have the Human Development Index, which is the HCI, It's a ranking for the countries according to their level of achievement and development, between 0 and 1. And we also have the headcount poverty. For the headcount poverty, which is the percentage of people living below the national poverty line. And as we all know, when we talk about poverty, it's a multidimensional phenomena. So in this indicator, we put in our mind 4 dimensions: the education, the consumption, and the public and private assets. These are the 16 indicators we settled on. And for the next step was developing the indicators map. So for the input data, the data was collected from various resources, report, scientific papers, global data, directories, Excel sheet, graphs, all type of data in a different format. So the analysis, what was conducted is for the data was a lot of spatial analysis was conducted to rasterize the data, such as rasterizing, resampling, georeferencing, because the goal is to have a standardized rasters with the same georeference, the same extent, the same resolution to be mapped later or to be used for the final model. So after the spatial analysis, our output that now we have, this is some of the examples of the indicators map that we have. So for each country, of the 4 countries, now we have 16 indicators for each country, and we also have for the Eastern Nile Basin boundary, we have also maps for the 16 indicators. So the next step is developing the domain maps. The input in this case was the indicators that we produce in the next step. This is conducted for the 4 countries, as I said. And the analysis in this case, so what we did is we take the free-scaled raster and we categorize them or putting them into groups or domain. But in this stage, we assign weight for each of the indicators to consider their depending on their importance and the influence that we want them to make in our final model. The weights were put after an expert discussion from each country. So after assigning the weights, this is now we are in the model development stage. So for the these are the input now for our model. So for the model development, we use 2 version of softwares. We use the commercial ArcMap, ArcGIS, and we use also the open source software. We use QGIS. So we have for ArcMap, the commercial one, we have 2 versions. One, this is a shortcut of the model that we have. You can use this if your data is already processed in a raster format with the exact resolution and extent. All you need to do rescaling and put it in the overlay weight, and you have the final model. The other version is the exact steps that we go through to deal with the raw data that we have. So if you have raw data, you can use this to show you the exact step that we go through for our model. So we also have the QGIS data, the QGIS model, and all this model give us the same results. So this is an example of the output when we run the models. So this is for Sudan, for example. So for the final model output, which is a combination, as I said, we grouped and we categorized the indicators into groups. This is the socioeconomic indicator, and this is the SDG 6 as a group. So combining them give us a clear idea about the vulnerable areas regarding to both domains, to help the decision makers and stakeholders to put their effort and intervention in the right place. So So this is actually showing you where are the key challenges. For example, we will notice the green places. As I say, it's rescaled from 0 to 1, where 1 representing a good value, which is the green areas. So when we look at the states that lay in the middle and along the Nile River, it show a relatively good value. In the opposite, there is state in the west and in the south, which show low values. So this is also the model output of the for Ethiopia. So I'm not sorry, I'm not going through the details because the time is running, but this is the combination. It also shows you the exact area that needs intervention and what the exact need. So it's this area need an intervention in, for example, it needs a sanitation service or lack of improved water sources. This is the output model for Egypt. It's also with the same results. And thank you. Submit, Chair.
Thank you very much for this interesting presentation, Ms. Fatima Salah. Very interesting, putting GIS and remote sensing application to SDGs. Very interesting presentation. We have saved some time because we're missing some 2 presentation from the planned 9 presentation. But
no,
according
John is with us. Engineer
John,
Gideon, John is
yes.
now with us.
Okay, that's
So
good. That's good. Then we can invite John Oino, Senior Program Officer of IUCN, to present his paper on the CO Malaba Malakasi transboundary basin benefits. As I was saying earlier, Mr. Oino, I remember starting this project at NTIP in 2007 or 2008. So I think building on SVP outcomes is a good sign for NBI. You can proceed with your presentation, Mr. Oino. You have the floor now. Yes, please proceed. We can't hear you. We can't hear you. Mr. Oino, we can't hear you.
Mr. John, please reconnect, and because your mic is not on. Is it on now? Okay.
Please proceed with your screen sharing now. Are you muted?
Mr. John? We are not hearing you.
There is a connection problem, I think.
With your microphone, John. We see your screen, we see our slides, but we don't hear you.
He's now disconnected.
Okay, Engineer Gideon, please, you can proceed.
Should we wait for some minutes if he is going to come back? Yes,
I think this is the last question.
He's still trying to share the screen now. Yes, again, we can't hear you, please.
Hello?
Mr.
Now
Oino.
we hear you.
Okay, please proceed.
Microphone issue.
He's having difficulty in connecting. You are muted now, Mr. John Oino.
Can you hear us? Can you hear us
Yes.
now?
Yes, please proceed.
Can you hear me? Sorry for this. It's about technology.
Please proceed.
Thank you very much. So basically, I'll move quickly. As I was saying, the Sio Malabo Malakisi Basin is a transboundary basin shared between two countries, Kenya and Uganda. And there are three sub basins in the sub basin itself. Malaba Malakisi and Palangoma draining into Kyoga, and then Sio draining into Lake Victoria. Now, our work basically builds on the work that the Nile sub has been doing in the sub basin for a long time. And we definitely supported the process to help them prioritize some investment program and do some sub basin investment planning process as I presented. So basically, in 2018 to 2016 to 2018, we had the benefit sharing analysis on the Malaba Malakisi, basically to help improve the decision-making process by the two riparian governments, and basically to ensure that stakeholders are engaged in negotiating the benefit that they could share in the two basin in the basin. So we started with the situation analysis. We wanted to know the entry point. We also wanted to know the stakeholders that are in place so that we understand the power dynamics. And then we picked it from there. We also didn't want to start from scratch. We wanted to build on what NELSAP has been doing. So that is why we had to start the process with the situation analysis. Then basically we went into series of stakeholder consultations. And the first stakeholder consultation was in 2017 in Kisumu, where the stakeholders agreed on the visioning, on what they want to see as a future basin, on the challenges and opportunities of joint managing the basin, and also identifying existing opportunities and future opportunities that they could build on and benefit from. Then what we did was to look at the already identified projects that the NILES were already working on. And we had 12 shortlisted out of about 70 projects that were already in the pipeline. We agreed on a stakeholder multi-criteria analysis framework that we used, that the stakeholders agreed on, to identify 12 prioritized projects that could be fast-tracked and prioritized and supported and implemented in the basin. Now, some of those projects are there. I don't want to get into detail. Just to say that one of those projects, the Angololo Dam, is at advanced stage, and the two countries are at the moment negotiating with the Africa Development Bank to support the implementation process. So basically, what we agreed on is to look at both the build and the national and the natural infrastructure, and we agreed that projects, the stakeholders through a process, cluster them into 4 clusters. And then basically, the reason for doing that was to ensure that both infrastructure development is aligned with catchment restorations as well as livelihood enhancements. So that as you develop the infrastructure, you ensure that where the water is coming from is well secured. And also, you also ensure that livelihood for the stakeholders and the local communities are also taken into account. Then we also supported the two countries to finalize their investment plan and financial sustainability strategy. And basically, the objective of the plan is to ensure that there is effective coordination of the actions in the basin, to ensure that the stakeholders are well aligned, and also to ensure that the projects are planned accordingly, taking into account the transboundary relevance, and also using the multi-criteria analysis that the stakeholders agreed on. And most importantly, to ensure that they are also funding is mobilized and they're also implemented for the satisfaction of the stakeholders. So in addition to all this, we also supported the process of revising and reviewing the memorandum of understanding between the two countries that was enacted in 2015, basically to help align it with the prioritized and with the planning process, and more importantly, to ensure that there is an institutional framework that will coordinate the implementation of the plan. Now, the work on the MOU is still going on, though we have already produced a final draft. The two countries are soon agreeing and finalizing it. Now, the idea behind reviewing the memorandum of understanding was for the two countries to move away from a project-based 2015 memorandum of understanding to an all-inclusive and encompassing institutional framework for the sub-basin. Now, in addition to the planning and the investment planning program that we did, we also had opportunity to engage in knowledge and experience sharing. We had an exchange program, a study tour. We had a few stakeholders from the sub-basin, SMM sub-basin, visiting the server in the Eastern Europe. The server was a national basin during the former Yugoslavia, but when those countries broke away, then the server became an international basin. So we took the stakeholders from the sub-basin to the server just to engage with the stakeholders on the other side to learn on how they are managing the transboundary basin, what is working, the institutional framework, the governance, the policies, the strategies that are in place, and how they are involving the local stakeholders, the national stakeholders, and the transboundary stakeholders. In addition, we also took stakeholders to the Rhine. Rhine is basically has been on there for a long time. It's shared by those countries in the stream. Basically to learn how upstream, downstream countries can work together in a shared basin. And we realized that through this kind of exchange programs and interactions and experience sharing, stakeholders were empowered. And when they came back, they said, so it is not us alone doing this. These are the best examples. When we go back in our countries, in our basins, in our sub-basin, we can also implement some of these good ideas. So basically, the exchange program is basically to expose them to good practices of similar work that they are doing, but which are taking place in other countries. So this is my last slide, basically to make some contribution and some recommendations, is to say that the stakeholders are necessary to be involved, and it takes time to involve them in this transboundary process. It's time consuming, but the most important thing is that there is need for institutional framework to be in place to coordinate the planning as well as the implementation of the plan. At the moment, we are helping the two countries to mobilize resources to implement the plan, both locally and also internationally, looking at various questions, especially that exist, that can support the implementation of the plan. Now, there is also still need for awareness and capacity building as far as the international water law is concerned, because we know there is still a lot of attachment to the to sharing the water instead of benefit sharing. So this attachment and national interest takes time to people to go over there, because as you are aware, the Nile Basin Initiative is one of the excellent benefit sharing basin in the world. But despite the fact that since 1999, still benefit sharing is still not very popularly acceptable among riparian countries. So we need time, we need to continue building capacities, we need to ensure that we have those kind of exchange programs so that stakeholders could see what is working in other jurisdictions, so that they have the courage and the morale to also continue. Now, transboundary cooperation is possible when there is trust. Trust is quite important. And most importantly, there is what is called common heritage. Most of these riparian countries, most of these riparian states have a common heritage. They are also trading together. So there's a lot of sharing back and forth that will benefit.
Seem to have lost you, John. Can you conclude?
And so
can you conclude your presentation, please? You are over time.
Thank you very much. This is basically my last slide. Thank you so much. Thank you. I've already concluded. Thank you. Hello?
Yes, I was disconnected for a while, but have you concluded your presentation now?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Thank
you, John. Thank you very much. We're just on time now to go to the Q&A program. But one note from John Oino's presentation on regarding your last slide referring to international law. It's not do no harm, but do no significant harm. I think that message should be clear in your presentation anyway. We'll discuss those during the Q&A. We have 76 participants. And thank you for all participants to be with us all this time. And now we go to the Q&A program. There are some questions already on the chat and the Q&A, and if those of the presenters notice any of the queries on the Q&A and then the chat window, you can respond to those. And alternatively also, participants can pose their question by raising their hand. And also, you can do so also by posing your question on the Q&A window or the chat window. If you want to raise your hand, you can do so electronically. Then we can proceed with the Q&A session now. As a start, if any of the presenters, there are some directed to some of the presenters in the Q&A, you can respond to them. Professor Julian, I noticed there is one question directed to you and others also. You can respond to them, and then we'll go to other questions accordingly. Mr. Tom Wako, you have one question directed to you.
Yes, moderator, the question was about the Basin Management Plan and Basin Investment Program and what is being done towards the implementation. I mentioned that the Basin Management Plan is overarching, and then the Basin Investment Program is some kind of implementation mechanism of the plan. And what is happening now is that the Nile Basin Initiative is into the implementation of the Basin Investment Program. We have set up a unit at the Secretariat. We are looking at the regional projects that have been prepared and also looking at how we can promote them for funding from the different multilateral funding agencies. And we are now into the process of engaging the various actors, including the regional economic communities, RBOs that are within the basin and working with these investment projects. So that's what is being done. And also the relationship with the plan and the program is that the program implements the plan. I hope we have addressed that question.
Thank you, Tom. For Mr. Shifarrao, about the rate of water users charge, is it under revision or an updated rate? This is a question on the chat. Mr. Shifarrao. Is Mr. Shifarrao with us?
He's online, but I think he's muted.
Can you hear us, Mr. Shifarrao?
Engineer Gideon, please proceed. I think it's
Professor,
better.
Okay.
And yeah, he will answer the question.
Professor Julian, somebody is asking more information about the PYWR River Basin simulation model. Professor Julian, are you with us? You are muted. And I don't see any hands raised.
I think Tak Jackie wanted to ask you a question. Maybe she needs to, yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
Madam Jackie from Rwanda.
Hello, do you hear
Yes,
me, Tom?
Yes, please go ahead from Rwanda.
Yes, good morning, everyone. And I'm Jackie Nyirakamana from Ministry of Environment. I'm also a member of NATAC. I thank the presenters for the good presentations. By the way, I managed to follow two presentations, three. One from Shefera, setting water charge regulation as a source of finance and water governance, case study of Ethiopia. Another one for Fatima and for John. So I need clarifications for the presentation from Shefera. I don't know if he is there. By the way, the approach for using these taxes for water users is very good. For Rwanda, we have already started that process. We are issued the water permits, but to fix the rate, it's very difficult. Some stakeholders really resisted for that rate or amount for that fee. So, and now that process is have been blocked. Excuse me, I'm in meeting. Inosa, please, I'm in meeting. You are disturbing me. Sorry, Tom. Do you still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes,
Please
there
proceed,
was someone.
Jacqueline.
Yes, so I wanted to know which approach really they have used to convince the water users to accept those fees, because as I heard, the process is have been concluded with stakeholders, and he said that they will send it to Prime Minister's office. So, and I have seen how the charges will be used regarding on irrigation, industry, and other water users. So we need really to learn more from Ethiopia, so that maybe in Rwanda we can copy that method or approach. The second one for John regarding the SMM benefit for sharing. Yes, I agree. We need really to share the benefits under Nile Basin Initiative. We have a lot of benefit to share, not only for water, but beyond even the water. Our country members, they need to work together. They need to share benefit from cooperation and beyond cooperation. But that can be happen if there is trust. As John said, we have to trust each other And we have to know that the Nile River, it's the resources for all country members. And we project that benefit for our future generation, not only maybe to see the issue of political conflict, which really affects some technical issues, but we need really to project and see the future of our Nile and the future of our generation. Thank you so much. I submit to moderator.
Thank you, Jacqueline. I think, Shifarao, you are muted. Are you with us, Shifarao?
Yeah.
Yes, you are with us. Have you heard the question on how you got the stakeholders to accept the rates you have issued now, the consultation process and the stakeholder giving a go-ahead to your calculated rates of charge?
Okay, it's a very important question. Regarding the charge, there was like a 3-year study for this for setting the charge by Addis Ababa Institute of Technology and our ministry, and within this time there is a direct contact with the water users, majorly the major water users. There is an assessment, the capacity to pay, the willingness to pay were conducted very well. And there is also the important stakeholders were also came together and discussed on the issue. And basically, the concept is giving value for the water. So even the price that set or the charge that set on the regulation is not as such big. For just this is for the introduction, and even on the regulation, it will be improved in the future. So there is a big discussion with stakeholders, with the government institutions, with implementers. So this is my thank you so much.
Thank you, Atosh Perro. Another person also asked if these rates are updated figures or not.
This is an update figure.
Okay, thank you.
Recent figure.
Another related thing Ato Gideon to Mr. Shifara is how did water use types, they did not include provision for water use for the ecosystem or ecological water. How do you account for this? It is in the chat, in the Q&A for Ato Shifara also.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Regarding environmental flow, considering the for ecosystem, we consider this is not calculated in the chart. This is considered in the water allocation process, in the water governance process. So we consider the environmental flow like 10 to 15% for environmental flow. We consider in the water allocation process. So we consider it not in the charge, but in the overall in the water allocation process.
Thank you.
Engineer Gideon, just to add more regarding to that, because I have been the part of this. Regarding to stakeholder consultation, we had a lot of stakeholder consultation was made. Most of stakeholders are interested to pay because this price is it's used in the future for after endorsement of the cabinet for ecosystem rehabilitation. Because of that, they are very interested and they are ready to pay. But there is a practical experience in the ground, especially in the Awash Basin and also in some part of the Abai Basin. But to scale up this experience, this new price is calculated and it's developed to scale up in the country level. But the interest of the stakeholders, Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adanich. maybe Mr. John Owino, you've explained very well about the benefits of benefit sharing in the Nile Basin. Of course, there are other views of promoting volumetric water sharing also. And these two views need to be looked and discussed. Of course, at a smaller scale basin, like CEO River Basin, I think things are working very well there. And at a smaller scale, and maybe between two countries, it may be manageable to consider the benefit sharing concept. Can you, John, also see why people are also promoting the volumetric water sharing arrangement in the Nile Basin?
Yeah, thank you, moderator, for that question. I think it is of course those are two views, and but now with climate change and population increase, there's a lot of dynamics that are that need to be put into the mix. But I think for me, if you ask me, I think basically it's just about the history and human beings. We are used to doing what we have been doing for long. We are used to history. We don't want to venture into new territories, even if evidence and good experience and good lessons is telling us that things can work. Because even if you look at the way the Nile Basin Initiative subsidiary programs were designed, those were basically for benefit sharing, and they have been working. Now there is the Rusumo, which is the new kid in the block. I think once the Rusumo is up and running, then it will be a practical benefit sharing case study that will give us a lot of motivation to go full throttle. Otherwise, I think we are just held by fear that we are complacent with the history and what has been going on as volumetric sharing. But at the end of the day, people just want benefits. I mean, you want water for domestic use, stakeholders want water for irrigation, stakeholders want water for use. So why are we so particular with volumes? I mean, if we can get what we want, why don't we just get what we want and everybody benefits? Because there are, for example, if even those natural infrastructure, there are specific places that they can be sited. Some areas they cannot. So how do you balance the two? You can only put dams in suitable locations. Some areas, if you put them, there will be flooding. If you put them in upstream, you will control downstream flooding. So how do we balance all these scenarios and everybody now benefit? So for me, I think it is best to look at the basin as a unit and plan it as a unit. And then there's the coordination, there's the investment planning process, there's coordination, and everybody in the basin benefit as a unit. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I noticed some comments on the chat regarding the opening remark. I'll read it as so. Good introductory remark, restoring to self-reliance in a robust investment, especially for huge infrastructure at national or transnational scale, may not yield timely desired results. So going jointly as a basin-wide institutional setting may be a win-win strategy to adopt. And he has followed his question by some explanation. But essentially, is a criticism directed to what Engineer Tafarra concluded by promoting self-financing of infrastructure projects. Maybe Engineer Tafarra can shed light on his conclusion on self-financing, if he is with us.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Gideon. I did read this comment, and I was not sure really if it was criticism or compliment. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, please proceed.
All right. Well, at the end, he did also say that we need to kind of self-finance. That's the thing. But my, experience showed me that unless we do finance these development projects ourselves, I don't think we would get finances for investments for transboundary for projects on transboundary waters. In fact, this was actually the thinking when the Nile Basin Initiative was started. That's why also I refer to it as a two-pronged approach. Lots of generation options were presented for investment through the INSAP and NELSAP. I remember in the very beginning, submitted more than 20 development projects, mainly hydropower with some irrigation projects for cooperative development, thinking that these projects would have benefits upstream, downstream, and if they are cooperatively developed. And this is also what the scoping study for the JMP showed, actually. There are huge benefits. It was explained that the agricultural production would increase immensely. The hydropower generation will increase. But because of this protracted kind of process, none of them have materialized so far. And probably it would be good to compare, like in 2000 or so, when the INSAP started, Ethiopia and Sudan also to a certain extent did table quite a number of investment projects. None of them were financed through this cooperation mechanism, but many of them have been developed through finances arranged, from their treasuries. In Ethiopia, maybe 4 or 5 large hydropower development projects that were tabled for INSAP were financed and implemented. In Sudan also, since anyway started, the Marawi, the Paratwara, and other projects. Of course, even downstream in Egypt, many projects were developed, even some of the wasteful projects like taking the water out of the basin. That was done, and that was, through finances. But through the cooperative process, nothing has been done, and it really is a problem. Even if you, the problem is, in the basin, there is a big asymmetry. The upper part of the basin has not developed, but the lower part of the basin has developed. So the interest for investment is different, and because of this, this idea could not work. Anyway, for me, I am convinced that if we member states do finance our projects, we'll be able to complete these projects and benefit the citizens of our countries. But otherwise, when some of the riparian countries work day and night against any development in the basin. I don't think this cooperative arrangement would work. And now, I don't know if the one who questioned or raised this or challenged this idea is the multilateral agencies now. They cannot even hear words like development, words like investment, and the like in the Nile Basin. So there's no, I see there's no way that we can finance our projects through this arrangement. But in any case, we need to prepare our projects very well, that we need to address, proper study has to be done, and as much as possible, we have to factor in transboundary aspects in our planning, be it a national or regional, and try to get from all sort of resources. It can be from the private sector, from the multilateral agencies and the like. But from my experience, the last 20 years in the Nile Basin, what works is really financing on projects. I don't know.
Thank you.
I can give some example of how even small projects, hydropower projects, getting finance is very difficult. If you allow me, I can give the example of Chamogayeda. Chamogayeda is a very small project, but with in terms of water charge and then discharge, like 10 meter cube per second. It's a stream, but a private financier developer arranged finance from a bank and then mobilize it to start the construction. And then all of a sudden, this private developer were told by the bank that they could not finance that. This project, the volume of this project reservoir is less than 0.5 billion metric cube. But look, within that basin, GERD with this kind of scale has been built from the finance that has been arranged.
Thank you, Ato Tabar.
Thank you.
Thank you. You have made your point. We're running out of time. I have Engineer Asene Mukomba. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you very much, Engineer Gideon. Of course, it's just for purposes of maybe emphasizing on what Engineer Tefera was mentioning. I think we need to separate perhaps maybe two things, which he also presented even when he was giving his opening remarks, because he did mention the planning. I think at NBI, what is being promoted is joint planning, because he has mentioned the JMP, the joint planning that happened in the Eastern Nile. He has also mentioned the multi-sector investment opportunity analysis at NELSAP. But when you look at those, for instance, NELSAP has now prepared 100 of projects. So we can't wait, to resource mobilize again altogether. I think importantly, to cut it short, importantly to me would be to joint plan, because there you identify risks, impacts among other things. Then when it gets to now financing, I think it doesn't harm if partner states put in their hand and effort to implement these plans.
Thank you. Distinguished participants, organizers, I think we've come
Sorry,
to...
Ato Gideon.
Is there any...
We've been having the hand of NBD Chair, Madame Fadian, for some time.
Yes.
I think you missed it. Madame Fadian is the chair of NBD board.
Mm-hmm.
She has been having her hand up for some time.
But I don't see any hands. Is she with us in the screen? In the screen, I don't see. Please, Madam, go ahead anyway, please. I don't see any hands on the screen.
Sorry, maybe she left, but
No,
has
she's
been
with us.
Is she with us?
She's with us, Ato Gideon.
Yes, please proceed.
Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity. As Tom mentioned, I'm Verdiane, Region Chair of NBD. It's a civil society organization working in the Nile and beyond. I want to ask one question to John, but I think one of the NELSAP team has just mentioned some. I see there are some projects which they are trying to do, Angololo and Sio Malaba. And I remember NBI through NELSAP has been doing these projects, and some even fundraising process or progress has been made as we work together with NBI, the civil society, to bring the voice of civil society, to bring the voice of the community at the grassroots. So I wanted to ask John if they are not duplicating the investment, or they are working together with NELSAP, and also how did they make sure the stakeholder as civil society, grassroots, women, and other group are part of the consultation. Just to mention that maybe they can use the model which NBI is using. Every time when they go to do any activity, they make sure communities are there through NBD, of course, as we are in the 10 countries and well structured. So I just want to hear from John, how did they engage the community, and how can we work together so we can, as our expertise is to engage the community, the grassroots women, how can we work together so we can make sure all the investments are really community engaged and participation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. If I may respond briefly. Yeah,
Thank you.
Think...
Is this directed to John or to Tom? Is it directed to you?
Gideon.
Yes.
Not to Gideon. To John.
Yes, please. Please, John, proceed.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think basically we are not doing any parallel work as IUCN. We have been working with the NELSAP, and we have been working with the two riparian states. We have been building on the efforts of what NELSAP has been doing, and that is what I started by saying, that we just helped them to prioritize and put together all those projects that they have been doing. We did a sort of listing of over 70 projects. The stakeholders came down to 12 prioritized ones, and then finally cluster them into a benefit sharing perspectives into 4. And then we also supported the investment planning process. Now we have a plan for the SMM Basin. We are working together still with the NELSAP to help them now put in place an institutional framework that will ensure that the investment program and investment plan that includes financial sustainability is also implemented. So yes, we are working together with the two riparian countries. We are also working together with the NELSAP in this process. Thank you.
Thank you all. Now it's 11:30, and according to the program, we should be ending our session, our webinar of this morning. I just wanted to say, remind also Dr. Colin Handa and Engineer Rahel, the two rapporteurs, to prepare a summary of the main issues and key messages, and submit those to the Secretariat so that they can be considered to be included in the proceedings of the NBDF 7. I think very important papers have been presented, very important concepts also have been also discussed and presented in this webinar. I think the NBI initiative to do the Nile River Basin Management Plan should be encouraged, including the investment plans and other initiatives of developing the Nile Basin to the benefits of the population of the basin. There are experiences on transboundary benefit sharing, as John presented to us, of the shared CO sub-basin. And also the Lake Victoria experience is also immense in sharing this experience of strategic planning in this sub-basin. And the new approach which Professor Julian presented to us, including some practical examples, taking the Renaissance Dam also. I hope this approaches will be published so that will benefit the negotiating countries. However, taking the World Bank document as a baseline may not be acceptable to some of the negotiating countries as such. But the important thing is the methodology and the multi-sectoral simulation and optimization methodology that has been discussed by Professor Julian. That methodology, the assumptions and other issues can be different, but important is how that modeling work is helping in finding solutions among negotiating countries. I think also a presentation from DRC, Mr. Uttane, also have dealt with financing water projects, including a plea for debt canceling of some of our in some of our countries. And I think we've benefited much from the whole presentation, including the Shifarau's presentation on water use and water charge. I think if Mr. Shifarau also develops his presentation into a paper that can be shared with member countries also, because there were questions on how stakeholder consultations was conducted and how this methodology and approach, including the charge calculated, was accepted by stakeholders, is an interesting approach. And if we can find that in a printed form or in a written form instead of a PowerPoint presentation, it will be useful for experience exchange. I also want to thank Ms. Fatima Sali for an excellent presentation on application of GIS and remote sensing on implementation of SDG, and also guiding governments where investments should go through such an analysis. So all in all, I would like to thank the organizers, the NBI, the caretakers who organized this, Dr. Adanech, Tom, also the other caretakers mentioned here, Malt, and Dr. Tola also. Thank you very much for organizing this webinar. I'd like to thank all the ICT personnel there, the translators, and all involved in facilitating this webinar, the presenters for their excellent presentation, and for all participants for patiently participating in this webinar. I hope this will be mainstreamed in the NBDF 7 proceedings. And thank you very much for all of you for participating in this webinar. And I think we are on time, although we have missed a couple of presentations, but I think we have all the most important presentations included in this webinar. I thank you very much. Our webinar, our session ends here. And in the afternoon, you have a very interesting presentation between 2 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. The thematic area on water, energy, and food nexus, conjunctive use of transboundary surface and groundwater resources. And so I request you also to attend the afternoon presentation between 2 p.m. and 4:30 p.m. Thank you very much. I hand you over to Dr. Adanich and Tom.
Thank you, Engineer Gideon, for your nice moderation, and also all participants. Already, Engineer Gideon inviting you to attend the afternoon sessions, and also we have other session in tomorrow morning too. This session is focusing the water quality monitoring. This will be start at 9 a.m. Please join us today afternoon and also tomorrow morning too. Thank you. Wish you good time.